scrolling through Indeed or LinkedIn, you'll find a common interest in most job listings looking for communication skills or social skills. Personality contrasts are impacted by modern media and society. Introverted individuals often being depicted as shy and extroverted as outgoing. Before discussing the issues with these terms, it is important to acknowledge the history of them. The Swiss psychoanalyst Carl Jung described extroverts as preferring to engage with the outside world of objects, sensory perception, and action. Introverts he described as being more focused on the internal world of reflection and thoughtful and insightful. This perception does not completely reflect our current view of the spectrum. Both sides deal with their share of stereotypes, such as extroverts notioned as being obnoxious, inconsiderate, unintelligent, and introverts being anxious and sociable and judgmental of people. I personally identify as an introvert to an extent, of course. Despite this, I'm able to stand up here, which I believe is brave for anyone to put themselves out there, but I can still do it. Some also contrast both sides by one gaining energy from socializing while the other drained from these interactions. However, can these conceptions be pinned onto introversion and extroversion? Is it truly simple enough to have two descriptors for the diverse and large human population? As society has progressed, psychology has proven to become more popular than ever before, recognized as a main and important scientific discipline. Treatment of mental health issues have progressed from psychiatric asylums to counseling and therapizing. With these changes came the societal stereotypes of what it means to be introverted or extroverted. Further studying Carl Jung's beliefs on his creation, he believed that there was no such thing as an absolute introvert nor extrovert. Jung's view can be seen in many different personality tests, with the most popular being the Myers-Briggs Traits Indicator, or the MBTI test. This test measures your percentages of traits, including that of your scale of extroversion to introversion. The true enemy of these two extremes are that it creates unrealistic standards for either side of the stick. There is a large division between both personality types, and it is an issue to expect behavior from people, whether they're introverted or extroverted. The issues are best described in a Medium article. Once you align yourself with the identity of an introvert, whether consciously or not, you're evaluating yourself against a model of introversion and the qualities you associate with it. This quote speaks volumes without even mentioning the restraints of either side. Anxious, quiet, boring, loud, happy, and popular. Do you hear the problem? When truly considering the nature of humans and how capable our species are, it is quite reasonable to believe that these extremes are not true for most people, leaving ambiversion a combination of the two that is objectively supposed to be a split ratio of both qualities. Among society is a plethora of stereotypes that scour any topic that can be associated with a person. Generally more harmful than helpful, these notions can be detrimental to one's identity and how they represent themselves, in a general manner to others. Personality, although being a complex topic, is still speculated upon as a topic that grew with the popularity and developments in psychology. In fact, there is a potential danger to the way stereotypes are to one's behavior. Very well-minded exemplifies your stereotypes affect how you behave as well. Here are some examples. You might walk to the other side of the street when you see individuals from a certain group approaching you. You might choose a seat in class or when using public transportation based on what people look like. Society teaches us ways to treat certain people depending on their background and attributes that sway whether one associates or deters from certain people rather than others. With that being said, it also affects how people treat you. When identifying oneself, you have to truly consider who you are over what you are. Sure, someone could heavily relate to the standards of what it means to be an introvert, stereotypically, or that of an extrovert. While a list of things could technically describe a person, it's easily not the most accurate way to represent how a person is. For example, I could put on my resume that I'm responsible, cooperative, dedicated, and every single good descriptor in the Merriam-Webster dictionary that could assist in scoring myself the job. However, when applied to real life with its adverse situations, these do not always apply. Even more interesting to say, there is a hierarchy of sorts of what version you are to what topic it applies and doesn't apply to. As mentioned before, let's say you're applying for a job and it involves people or customer service maybe. I think that the obvious choice for the employer, if they have two options, a man who is introverted or a woman who is extroverted, who do you think they're going to pick? The answer is quite obvious. But moving on to the online space and in pop culture, introversion is considered more relatable than that of an extroverted ideal, which is seen as the normal, which technically is correct. The majority of the population is speculated to be extroverted at about 50 to 74%, according to Psychology Today, making up the majority of our population, which makes sense. In our cooperative society, communication is quite necessary to make things work, or at least make things work efficiently. Most introverts will just have to succumb to the world and accept it for what it is by adapting to how it is. The Guardian expresses, introversion has been romanticized into an image of a thoughtful soul wandering through nature, book in hand, considering life's big picture. Extroversion, meanwhile, is a boorish individual at a loud party, demanding attention and holding forth in a conversation about a topic on which they are ill-informed. Not only do these misconceptions misinform, they also misguide the complete picture of who somebody is. Now, to see the numbers stacked against each other, in terms of pop culture, such as memes, for example, for research purposes, I searched both introvert memes and extrovert memes, and introvert memes cultivated about 15 million results, whereas extrovert memes at a mere 1 million. I was initially shocked at these numbers, but then again, it made sense. Obviously, more people are going to want to relate to the underdog or the more niche side, so to speak. It is almost second nature. What is inherently true about extroversion and introversion is that both of the terms are very defined, very generally to be applicable to a large pool of people. But when the very basic definitions are taken into consideration when trying to learn about a person, it really does not represent much. A person's relation to either of these should be almost detested in any circumstance. Now I'm going to bring in an example of how these terms truly function with an example I learned from my US history course this year. Of course, in a history course, certain approaches are debated for their significance politically, economically, religiously, socially, intellectually, and artistically. Keynesian economics was a concept made by John Maynard Keynes to ease the economic impact of the Great Depression. It was a macroeconomic theory involving the consideration of the total spending in the nation, employment, and inflation. The problem with this is that it tried to predict and replicate human behavior regarding consumerism. With that being said, identifying human behavior as a constant is not realistic. Environment and past experiences play a part in how people behave day to day. When someone's typical environment changes, adapting may not be as seamless, but it definitely is how we function and how we act in adverse situations that life throws at us. So what does this all mean? Showing people who you are really defines how you're perceptive, rather than flat words that can't grasp the diversity of any human very well at all. Taking any test to decipher what you are over who you are is never complete, and rightfully so, because of our vast differences as people. Best said by Maya Angelou, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Because it is not how you present yourself, it is how you are perceived, and the full story comes later when the murk of mystery fades into acknowledgement. Thank you.